Afternoon, October 26, 2020. The sudden roar of motorcycles shatters the stillness of southern Niger, sending a chill down 27-year-old Philip Walton's spine. Trouble is closing in, fast. Heart pounding, he grabs his wife's hand and pulls her into the relative safety of their small farmhouse, knowing every second counts. Walton, a farmer tending mangoes and modest crops, has little to offer the bandits, except one thing: he's an American. 6 men on motorcycles thunder up the dusty driveway. As they dismount, Walton spots the old Cold War-era Kalashnikov rifles. He instinctively raises his hands as the bandits demand money. Walton has only $40 in cash, hardly enough to satisfy them, but they take it anyway before ransacking his home. But Philip himself is the real prize. The bandits have done their homework. With rifles leveled at him, they shove Walton onto a motorcycle. His wife watches on, her desperate cries drowned out by the roaring engines. Shaking but determined, she rushes inside to call the Nigerian authorities, praying it isn't too late. 2 hours later, the bandits have crossed the border from Niger into Nigeria in a bid to avoid the authorities. Hidden deep within the bush, far from watchful eyes, is their base, a ramshackle compound that serves as both a hideout and an operations hub. It's here that they stash their hostage. A brief, heated argument breaks out between the kidnappers. Some insist on selling him quickly to one of the many terror or extremist groups in the region. They know it wouldn't take long to find a buyer. Foreigners are always in high demand, and Walton's nationality makes him a premium asset. But the others think they can get more money by demanding ransom from Walton's family. Walton tries to explain that he is the son of missionaries. His family isn't rich, but when he realizes the alternative, he wisely keeps his mouth shut. One of the bandits rifles through Walton's belongings, pulling out his phone. With an air of cold efficiency, they dial his father, who lives across the border in Niger. The call is brief but brutal. They make a demand for $1 million and hang up, powering the phone down, hoping to cut off any chance of them finding their location. What the kidnappers don't know is that they have made a fatal mistake, and the clock is already ticking. Within hours, a response will be underway. The United States will bring the full might of the world's most technologically advanced intelligence and military apparatus to bear on them. 1330 hours local, Washington. Walton's father wastes no time. The moment the bandits hang up, he places a frantic call to the American embassy in Niamey, Niger's capital. It takes less than half an hour for news of Walton's abduction to reach the Secretary of Defense. Barely an hour later, a meeting between the SecDef and the Joint Chiefs, along with envoys from the NSA, CIA, FBI, the NRO, and NGA, is in full swing. Options are being discussed. Intel is being shared. What is clear is that Walton has been taken somewhere across the border from Niger. Nigerian authorities piece this together from local witnesses, even as their own manhunt gains momentum. The Nigerian government cooperates fully, mobilizing its own response force to join the effort. In the secure meeting room, the representative from the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency speaks. They'll soon have a more accurate fix on Walton's location. The SecDef asks the question everyone is thinking: how accurate? Down to a few meters. Acting on its own initiative, a joint team of CIA and NGA specialists is already zeroing in on the one clue the kidnappers unwittingly left them: Walton's cell phone. The kidnappers had been careful and smart enough to place the call well away from their compound, but they didn't count on one small detail: Walton was using an older model of cell phone. Like many older model cell phones, this one did not fully power down even when turned off, with the processor waking up every 10 minutes to check for text messages. The only way to fully power off these phones is by removing the battery entirely. It was a traceable digital footprint. The team had got a general location, but uncertainty remains. There is no guarantee that the kidnapper who placed the call or the phone will return to the compound where Walton is being held. A psychologist from the CIA is next to speak. In her expert opinion, the group is uncoordinated and lacks professionalism of experienced kidnappers. They took a risk by using the cell phone in the first place and even allowing it to be transported along with the hostage. They may be amateurs, but this doesn't make them any less dangerous. That doesn't change the greatest risk. Walton could be sold off to a local terror group, or worse, a terror group could snatch him of their own initiative. News of his abduction is already spreading around the region. A very real clock is ticking. If Walton disappears into a black hole in this part of Africa, the odds of finding him drop dramatically. The only way the world might ever hear from him again is in one of ISIS's chilling execution videos broadcast online. The FBI hostage crisis director speaks up. What if Walton is bait? A few eyebrows furrow around the table as this possibility sinks in. ISIS, Boko Haram, and Al-Qaeda in Africa have demonstrated increasing levels of sophistication. What if Walton was taken with enough breadcrumbs left behind to make the U.S. consider a rescue? If there is one propaganda coup greater than taking an American hostage, it's ambushing and killing an elite U.S. Special Forces rescue team and capturing any survivors. A video execution of one of America's most elite warriors would be a devastating blow for the U.S. It would deliver a recruitment and funding boom for groups like the Islamic State. A one-star general from the Air Force, representative of the Air Force Special Operations Command, calmly folds his hands in front of him. If there's any concern that Walton is bait, the Air Force will put enough firepower in orbit over the rescue attempt that any ambushers will be atomized moments after springing their trap. 2 AC-130 gunships deployed out of Little Rock can provide air cover, supported by in-air refueling tankers flying out of Morón Air Base in southern Spain. Ospreys can be used to deliver an insertion team, themselves supported by helicopter refuelers also dispatched out of Britain and Spain. In the meantime, a number of Predator and other reconnaissance drones already in theater can be repurposed to provide 24-hour surveillance of the compound. First, the team needs to confirm that Walton is in whatever location the joint CIA-NGA team has pinpointed through his phone. That task falls on the CIA. They already operate a fleet of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance aircraft across Africa to support U.S. and allied partners' counterterrorism efforts. As soon as the president phones his approval, one of these aircraft will be in the sky over Nigeria within the hour. October 27, 2020. The CIA has successfully tracked Walton's phone to a remote area of northern Nigeria. The terrain here is unforgiving, dry savannas scattered with sparse clumps of trees. The arid land, too inhospitable for any farming or settlement, provides the kidnappers the ideal remote base of operations. It is remote, concealed, and far from any interference. More assets are en route to determine if Walton is really at the location, but nothing beats the old-fashioned way, eyes on the ground. A Marine Special Operations reconnaissance team is repurposed from its counterterrorism mission and swiftly deployed to the area aboard Black Hawk helicopters. Secrecy is paramount. They cannot risk revealing that the United States already has a solid lead on Walton's location. To maintain the element of surprise, the Marines are dropped off over 15 miles away and forced to continue the grueling journey on foot. The Marine team is small, only 6 strong and lightly equipped. Their job is not to rescue Walton, even if an opportunity arises. Instead, they're tasked to confirm his presence at the compound and maintain 24-hour on-the-ground surveillance. Armed with long-range reconnaissance equipment, 4 of the Marines are there to support the team's 2 snipers. The terrain offers little in the way of concealment, so the team has to insert under darkness. They need to cover the 15 miles while laden with equipment and set up 2 different listening observation posts on either side of the compound, all before daybreak. Getting discovered would be a disaster, not just for Walton, but for the Marines themselves. The gunships which will provide cover for the rescue attempt are still in the United States. If the team is compromised, there is no rescue for them. They are on their own. For the next 2 days, the Marines remain undetected and provide confirmation on Walton's presence at the compound. Meanwhile, operatives from the Navy's legendary SEAL Team 6 are being assembled and prepared for the raid, an operation that falls within their designated area of responsibility inside Africa. Like many other U.S. Special Operations forces deployed throughout Africa, their presence is authorized to pursue anti-terrorism missions around the world. Their secretive status protected by law in the wake of 9/11. October 29, 2020. High-altitude aircraft using extremely sensitive and powerful instruments map the compound in remarkable detail. Using material-penetrating radar, they create images of the compound's interior. While low in resolution, the data is detailed enough to allow the SEALs time to practice a precise insertion and how to move throughout the compound. Meanwhile, radio reports from the Marine reconnaissance team on the ground provide real-time updates. Together, this intelligence enables the SEALs to craft an efficient plan of assault. In Europe, 6 Osprey aircraft and 4 MC-130 aircraft are being deployed to Morón Air Base on the southern tip of Spain. The SEALs will hitch a ride aboard the Ospreys to the insertion point. The MC-130 doubles as in-air refuelers and stand ready to provide resupply via airdrop should the situation on the ground become complicated. 5 KC-135 Stratotankers from the 100th Air Refueling Wing also joined the growing assault force. October 30th, 2020. In the early hours, 2 AC-130 gunships flying out of Little Rock, Arkansas, land at Morón Air Base. They'll provide air cover for the assault force on the ground. Carrying artillery ranging from a 105mm howitzer to 40mm cannons and chain guns, the AC-130s bring enough firepower to level a significant stretch of northern Nigeria. Nigerian intelligence believes that the risk of Walton being sold on to the Islamic State or Al-Qaeda is growing. Their situation is becoming critical and putting significant pressure on the Americans to launch their rescue attempt. The Nigerian military secretly assembles a quick reaction force, standing by in case the Americans encounter trouble. Tasked with providing immediate support, this unit will be the first boots on the ground that the U.S. SEALs can count on if the operation goes south. Across the border, Nigerian authorities also organize a fast response force meant to be deployed in case the kidnappers manage to flee from the American assault. Given their proximity to the border, it's likely they'll seek to re-enter Niger and could quickly be lost in the countryside if the authorities don't react quickly. Late in the afternoon, U.S. intelligence delivers an urgent update to the Secretary of Defense and the President. The kidnappers no longer believe they'll receive a ransom for Walton. Instead, they're preparing to sell him to the highest bidder. The green light is immediately given. At 1830 hours local, Navy SEALs board their Ospreys, who along with their MC-130 escorts take to the air. They fly southeast over Morocco, and a half hour later they're joined by one of the faster-flying AC-130 gunships and two of the Air Force's stratotankers. Deep over northern Africa, flying at night and within feet of each other, the stratotankers refuel the MC-130s, who in turn refuel the Ospreys. After two air-to-air refuelings, the stratotankers peel off and return back to Meron Air Base. Just as the assault force enters Nigerian airspace, they'll return in time to meet the aircraft on their way back out, to provide refueling once more and get the crews safely home. The Ospreys and their escorts continue south and enter over northern Nigeria at around 0100 hours. The 30 SEALs begin their insertion under the cover of night, choosing a high-altitude parachute jump to avoid alerting any sentries near the compound. Their black parachutes blend into the darkness. The only clue to their arrival is the brief blotting out of stars as the men make their way down to the earth. Touching down just a few miles from the objective, they quickly gather and conceal their jump gear, before splitting into fire teams and moving out on foot. A Poseidon electronic intelligence and surveillance aircraft on loan from the Navy arrives on station, and the gunships settle into a wide orbit over the target. The Poseidon uses its array of cutting-edge and extremely classified surveillance technologies to feed real-time data to the SEAL assault team. On the ground, the SEALs approach the compound from two separate locations. They know most of the kidnappers are asleep. The two sentries patrolling the compound are completely unaware of the unseen force stalking their perimeter. Moving silently through the shadows, the assault force manages to make its way all the way up to the house itself, where they identify the kidnappers by sight. Then, they open fire. The gun battle is over in mere seconds, and it is completely one-sided. The two men standing guard over Walton are immediately dispatched by silenced assault rifles. Four of the other kidnappers rush to grab their rifles, but are stunned by the use of explosive flashbang grenades. Hot on the heels of the flashbangs, assaulting SEALs burst into the house and dispatch the disoriented kidnappers. Only one of the kidnappers survives the ordeal, opting to surrender. Walton is quickly identified, checked by a medic for any wounds or injuries, and rushed out of the house. Two Ospreys sweep in low, their rotors slicing through the air as they set down just behind the advancing SEAL assault. The timing is flawless, their arrival synchronized with the unfolding operation on the ground. Overhead, the deep roar of the gunship fills the night. Its orbit significantly tightened in anticipation of delivering fire support at a moment's notice. Between the gunship and Poseidon's powerful surveillance equipment, no additional hostiles are located in the vicinity of the compound. This kidnapping was not a trap at all. Aboard one of the departing Ospreys, a SEAL medic tends to Walton, treating him for dehydration. The aircraft is already en route to an airfield in Niger, where further medical care will be administered. The entire operation took days to coordinate and hours to execute. Walton's actual rescue lasted less than a minute, thanks to the extreme lethality of America's most elite warriors. The entire mission is a testament to the flexibility, mobility, and intelligence-gathering might of America's military and civilian intelligence agencies. What do you think of the rescue mission? Was it a perfect display of U.S. military power? Share your thoughts in the comments. Now go check out Crazy Rescue Mission of Hijacked Airplane, Operation Entebbe, or click this other video instead.